Sam Talk. I'm today's host because Sam is asleep after what she say 2 days straight of emergency issues with Camden County and tornadoes and everything. So
and she's been sick as a dog.
She finally got relieved and is in bed. So hopefully Camden County will get over all of its emergencies and Sam will actually get a life again. We'll see. And we have over here to my left, Miss Melissa.
Hi, everybody. KI5ICQ. I've been on walkabout for about a month. Went up to the Harley-Davidson 120th anniversary festival. Then went over to Oshkosh. And then I went west toward Sturgis. And I just got back about an hour ago. Back to the Texas heat, to my hot house, and scrambled to put my laptop together so I could be on the show. So yeah, we are missing Sam. She has been really under the weather. She's wearing herself out. She was finally able to lay down, and she got relieved. Finally was able to lay down and get some rest. So if you guys are missing Samantha, you can find her on Facebook, Camden County, MO Emergency Management Agency. She's got some videos on there about the latest stuff that's going on with them. So, but other than that, what you got, Andrea?
Hi, everyone. K2EZ here. And I had this little box that says ICOM on it show up this week. And well, that's not the little box, that's the big one. But along with it came this cute little box. So we're gonna have some fun with that this segment, and we'll talk about that new arrival to the family here.
I'm still saying if you want to store it at my house in the shack, I will let you look at it online anytime. That seemed like a very generous offer on my part. I'm jealous. I had one in my budget and plans, and then the county people found ways to raise taxes further on the ranch, and we got hit with about another $3,000 of taxes that we weren't planning on. So that kind of swallowed my I want a new toy budget money. So that radio got put off for a little while. Hopefully not very long, but it's put off for a while. All right. This month we've got Andrea with that, and I'm going to do a segment. I figure it's right in line. We had a segment from Andrea on the Rover. We did a segment last month on the Stealth VW.
Stealth GTI.
Okay, well, it was close. And everything. So this month we're going to do the HAMster communication trailer that Ruth and I bought. We bought the trailer in 2013, and we built a complete mobile ham station in there that allows up to 3 operators. We can do 160 through 1296 communications, digital modes like WinLink and everything. So it's a well set up trailer. Ruth uses it for emergency communications with Aries. I use it to go find a hilltop to go have fun during contests and band openings and just general operating. And while we're building the ranch house, since I had no ham station up there, I parked it over by the house, tied it into the base antennas, and I used that as my ham shack for a while. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
There. When we built it, we put air conditioning in it. Never thought about heat. Well, when I was using it mostly was December and January, and I realized the character flaw in in the design. You know, we were thinking hot trailer, keep us cool, keep the equipment cool. Never occurred to me that we might be operating in cold weather. So, you know, I'm not the brightest bulb at all times. But
Well, I
anyway,
would,
it
I
is
mean,
what it is.
yeah,
Huh?
the trailer isn't so large that you can't put a cube heater in there.
Actually, what we ended up doing, we actually have it's an oil-filled electric radiator. Works wonderful. It
Yeah.
gives a good smooth heat. It heats the whole place up. So it works well. It's just the very first time I used it in the winter, and we had owned it for like 5 years before we ever used it in the winter.
And that's why you didn't install a heater.
Yep, never even thought about it. So
You
it
would think with all
worked.
that equipment in there, it might kind of warm it up a little bit.
Well, if we ran a couple tube amps like Henry's, it would have definitely heated the place up. I remember when we were doing some DX contesting, me and a couple fellow hamsters, we used 2 meters on Simplex to spot, and then we went and we'd all jump on the frequency and see who could work the DX station through the pileup in the least number of tries. We got pretty good at it. We were working them first or second try on almost every contact. But I was running, it was 26 degrees outside February. I was running the Henry. The ham shack in the front bedroom, I have the vent shut and it's got its own heat and air conditioner. I didn't have anything on because it was like 70 the night before. And the windows were open, and I came in the shack because we took off and went someplace, and it froze during the night from 70 degrees. I came into a very cold shack, and I started to turn the heat on. I thought, no, I'm going to see what the Henry does. And here's the funny part: after 3 hours of chasing DX with all of us doing that, I turned the air conditioner on. So,
Yeah.
you know, it didn't take long to heat that front bedroom. All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll start with Miss Melissa today. You've got some questions, comments, and everything. So
Yeah.
from our
we have a few comments here. And this was from the last show. Michael WA5AZQ said, great show this week. Lots of video production value and very interesting topics. I know this show is a lot of hard work to put together, but it's fun for us to watch. So thanks to each of you for all that you do. The VHF propagation has been great around here for the past few weeks. Sadly, I've had to work and I can only get on while commuting to work in the mornings. I'm looking forward to roving during the September VHF contest, though. Someday I'll get to KE4WMF, Andrea's, and KA5D's level. 73 from up the road in Bee Cave. That was WA5AZQ. And KI5WPX has been enjoying our videos. So just wanted to say, hey, KI5WPX. And Mike McDonald says he still has a broken tower. And we're with you, Mike. Nobody wants to get out into the insane heat. And most of us are waiting until the first cool front before we pop out from our ham shacks. Also, the Bob Heil K9EID podcast a while back. Some comments from that. VK2AOE. VK2AOE says, the phased array ideas have me excited. 73. And we have one more comment from a YouTube user, Fiat Last 5283. And I'm going to read this, and I don't know if either one of y'all are going to have any input on it. they say when you put 500 feet of RG213 between your transmitter and antenna and the antenna, 2 dB loss on 75 meters and 2.4 dB loss on 40 meters. The round trip loss is twice that amount. This causes a high SWR to appear much lower. Then you believe an antenna like the coaxial antenna appears to be broadband, when in fact it is nothing more than a dipole. The phased dipoles do have a FB ratio, but relatively low gain in the range of 3 to 4 dB. Couple this with the loss in 500 feet of coax, see above, and the net gain is nearly negligible. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
That was a pretty lengthy comment on all of that. So
Go ahead, Andrea.
I thought they were talking about your setup there, Greg. Obviously, yes, if you got that kind of loss on coax and without looking it up, 80 meters, yeah, that 500 feet sounds plausible to have about 2.4 dB. So, and if you're just looking at SWR or return loss, you're going to have almost 5 dB worth of loss round trip. And that's going to, if you think about it this way, if you had so much coax that your return loss was negligible, just a tiny amount of power, it would look like great SWR no matter where you tuned it to. So that point's understood. And I think the point getting made also is that since the antenna, the phased array, can get about 3 dB, if you're losing 3 dB in coax, maybe a dipole closer in would have been about equal. That's how I interpret that, and there's a legitimate point there. So I believe that was referring to your segment, Greg. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually kind of agree with the overall sentiments. I see what Bob's trying to accomplish, and you know, and he's clearly had some good luck with it. I thought at the time that the coax was the wrong feed line for doing that, and there's certainly some ways to do it without having 500 feet of cable looping back to you on that. But I'm just not a big dipole person, period. I like my log periodic. Now, granted, not everybody's got 200 square feet of space for a giant log periodic. I don't either. I got good neighbors. So, you know, that's kind of where that's at. I'm not a I like the phased arrays. I just don't like the way it was done in Bob's example. But that said, I know Bob's been doing it a long time. He's worked on some things and stuff. So there is some trade-off on there. But I do think if I did it, I would be using much lower loss feed line. In fact, I know I would, because I will not go over 1 dB loss, period. Which is why I have oil pipeline and air conditioning duct for going up to my antennas in places, because we stick to a very low loss phasing. Now, one of the things that you can do, and I do with single runs, and I've got quite a few antennas, like I've got a new antenna array. I can take it and I can phase it. at the flip of a switch with the relays up on the top. It's kind of elaborate wiring at the top of the tower, but it switches to a single vertical or a single horizontal, or I can flip it to stacked horizontal or stacked vertical. I can do a right-hand circular polarization, or I can do a left-hand circular polarization, all from flipping the switch. And one of these weekends, I will show how that's all wired up. But it took a bunch of relays, a lot of matched cable and everything. But I've had great luck with it, from satellite comms to working some decent DX on terrestrial. So it's fun. I'm going to do the same setup here, but on a larger scale for some EME in the near future. All right. Well, Miss Melissa, you got anything else?
That's it.
That's it. All right. Well, Andrea, come on down.
Okay, well, up next, we're going to talk about what's in these boxes. Open these up, look inside. IC905. This is the new one from ICOM that does everything from, if I'm not mistaken, 2 meters to 5.7 gigahertz. Not quite all the US bands, as we'll get into. And this little one, the CX10, which is a companion to the IC905, and it's the 10 gigahertz module. And so let's cut to my segment and we'll open those boxes.
All right. Looking forward to that. Done.
Today I'm unboxing I recently received IC905 and my CX10G 10 gigahertz transverter. For those who don't know what the IC905 is, it's I'll call it a derivative from the IC705, which covers all of HF, VHF, and UHF. This rig is designed for VHF, UHF, and microwaves. And my particular interest is for the microwave bands, the top band on the IC905, 5.7 gigahertz, and then the 10 gigahertz transverter. And I will talk about why I selected this. This is not the sort of rig that's for everyone. It does have certain advantages, though, for these high frequency microwave bands. The IC905 covers 2 meters, 70 centimeters, 23 centimeters, which is 1.2 gigahertz, 13 centimeters, which is 2.3 gigahertz, 5 centimeters, which is 5.7 gigahertz, and with the optional transverter, 3 centimeters, which is 10 gigahertz. There are 3 additional amateur bands that are not covered in this frequency range, and that is 1.25 meters, which is 222 megahertz, 902 megahertz, which is 33 centimeters, and 9 centimeters, which is 3.4 gigahertz. That was a lot to remember. So let's dive in and see what we've got here. Icon box. I want to say this is quite heavy. This is not so bad. I'll put the transverter out the back here for the moment. And we will find out why this is so heavy. First section of the box here. And it looks like we've got fun stuff like a microphone, a long cable, and I'll get into this cable later. Looks like some mounting stuff for the antenna and a power cord. And let's see what we got here. Another small box. It's got a bunch of stuff in it. Here we have a basic control module, IC905. And so this supports, apparently it says D-Star. It's all modes. And I haven't gotten into the details, and so when we get into the functional review, I'll have to talk about this. But I understand it does amateur television, which is one of the reasons one may want to go on these higher frequency bands. I've also heard high-speed data. When you talk about television and high-speed data, you're talking bandwidth. And the lower frequency amateur bands don't have enough bandwidth for that. Hence the microwave bands. We have a very large bracket. Take that out of its plastic. More box inserts. Nothing here has been particularly heavy. And finally, at the bottom of the box, this is why it's so heavy. This is the RF unit. What makes the 905 unique and why I am interested in it is this module is where all the action takes place. This is just the control, and it's nice and compact, which I can have inside my car. But this is intended with this bracket here to mount up on the tower. And I believe it's mounted this way with the RF connections down. And there's one here for it's labeled 5.6 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. And then a single one here for 2 meters, 1.25, and 1.2 gigahertz. So to operate these, one needs to have some sort of splitter after it comes out, either antenna switching or a diplexer of some sort. There is also a little connector here for a GPS unit. You may say, why a GPS unit on something that's going to mount up on a tower? May make sense for my car, right? But many people are mounting these on the car. One of the problems at these higher microwave frequencies is the stability of your frequency. The typical oscillators for HF and VHF are stable enough that with the crystal you get the frequency you intend to get. But as you get into the microwave frequencies, small errors in the crystal frequencies result in significant errors in the frequencies used for stepping down the signal, the local oscillator and the mixer, to get technical, to the lower frequency bands. As a result, there's a couple techniques. One is to use a high stability oscillator, but those drift with time. So what is done these days, very typically,
is they lock the signal to GPS satellites because you need a very tight time base, and you can derive that from the satellites. They use that to get the time base and lock all their oscillators internal to the unit so that you get the frequency you expect. I do not know how stable it is in this case, but as a general practice on the microwave bands, you have to expect significant signal drift, and I mean like tens of kilohertz. It can be pretty bad, which is why I use the pan adapter from the Flex Radio on my microwave bands. So I'm looking forward to this. Now, to answer the question, it's got a little icon logo on there. Why do we want this mounted up on our tower, exposed to the weather and such? Well, the signal losses on these bands, it's not so bad on 2 meters, although you do want to watch your feed line lengths on 2 meters, use good feed line. 70 centimeters, it gets a little more challenging. At 2.4 gigahertz, the losses are pretty high. The 18-foot run I have in Rover has, in my mobile, has about 40% loss. I lose 40% of the power that I transmit. It also means I lose that much received signals. I suffer with that, but that gets worse at 5.6 gigahertz and at 10 gigahertz. So that is where you want to have the transverter, well, short of before this radio was produced. To get on these bands, you had to use a transverter. People would put their transverter up on the tower in a box, multiple transverters with short feed lines to the antennas, and then run 2 meters down or 10 meters down to their radio in the shack. And that 2 meter signal or 10 meter signal, the radio used to pick that up would often be called the IF receiver. And when you're using a transverter, you convert from that IF frequency to the final output frequency, and similarly for the receive. So this design, ICOM was smart, and they went right to the outset, said, okay, this is going to have to be mounted up on a tower, hence the little bracket parts, the big bracket, and the cable, which is intended to run from here, yeah, that's what it looks like, all the way down inside. I'm not sure how the mounting, I expected this side was up, but maybe this side is intended to be up. Have to watch out for water intrusion. I'm just seeing a couple little gaps there, and I'm not sure if water can leak in there. And I also want to say one of the reasons I've chose this route for Rover for 5.7 and 10 gigahertz is this is fairly compact. It's weather tight, supposedly, and so it's not going to have a lot of wind load to it. Typically, the transverters for these two bands would be bigger than this module alone. I should say transverters for 5.7 and 10 gigahertz. Then you put all the support connections. The transverters themselves aren't weatherproof. You need a box for it. By the time you do all that, you're looking at something probably twice this size, dimensionally, in 2 dimensions, and like 4 times the wind load. So this seems like the best bet for me. I do have to think about the winter time because salt, I think I might just not leave it up in the winter time, just put it on the car for contests. So let's go take a look at what the 10 gigahertz transverter back there has to offer. Little box. Warranty stuff. Here we've got what looks like a control cable and a coax cable and a RF core and some brackets again because the 10 gigahertz module mounts separately on the mast. Not much of an instruction manual here. And here's the cute little guy. Intended to mount like this. Again, another chunk of wind load. And it has a cable, and these little connectors here are SMA connectors. Very common in the microwave. And so it has a one that goes to the 2.4 gigahertz. Let's see if I can hold both these at once. You can tell there's a lot of metal in these. So this 2.4 gigahertz goes to the 2.4 gigahertz here. And so this transverter converts the 10 gigahertz to 2.4 gigahertz. And then there's a point where I can put my 2.4 gigahertz antenna. I assume that with the controls and such, when I select 2.4 gigahertz, this will just pass through up to my 2.4 gigahertz antenna. And when I want 10 gigahertz, it will interrupt and feed 10 gigahertz down and be largely transparent. 10 gigahertz antenna there, control cable. And what's that BNC for? The BNC cable is for that 10 megahertz, or excuse me, I didn't mention this before, but it's a 10 megahertz sync signal. And the GPS system on the 905 outputs 10 gigahertz, which is used by this. There are third-party 10 gigahertz references that lock to GPS, so that's become the de facto standard long before this rig was made. So this completes my unboxing and quick introduction to the IC905. We will get together again and I will show it to you operating and give you some opinions on its operation. Till then, this is Kilo 2 Echo Zulu, roving reporter for Ham Talk.
That was pretty good. I like it. I'm jealous. I am beyond jealous. When they first advertised that radio, my heart was going, and I said, "Oh baby," and I started looking to see which kids I could sell. Auction off the ranch, something. And I thought I had it all figured out. And then the county and I had an argument on the value of a building on the ranch, and I lost.
It wasn't that hunt shack, was it, that they almost had to blow up?
No, it's the barn. They think that that metal barn, which is 30 by 60 feet, I have a value on it of $15,000 because that's what it cost me to have that built.
Yeah.
Because that's the only building I had them come in and just do straight from some scratch. Their vision of it is 50 to 60,000.
That's unacceptable.
Yeah, that's kind of what I felt. We finally got it down to about 28,000, which is still ridiculous, but it caused my taxes to go up some more. I think what they're doing is they're getting my taxes up as high as possible, because this year our house taxes and our ranch taxes freeze because of 65.
Yeah.
So I think they're
That's,
trying to
probably
bend
a
me
pretty
over
good
now.
bet.
Huh?
That's probably a pretty good bet that that's
Yeah.
what's going on.
So anyway, they ate my radio budget. So Andrea, I'm going to live vicariously through you and stuff there. Well, let's go ahead and jump into my segment. We're going to go over the HAMster to give you an idea what the HAMster is. At one time, we had a mobile ham shack that could do 2 operators at a time. Worked really well. The problem was it couldn't pass a gas station. We took an old 1989 retired ambulance and we turned it into the Hambulance. And it was a great mobile ham shack. You could go down the road, you could operate at the same time because you could walk between the seats and everything. But we wanted to go to Big Bend one trip, and we couldn't figure out how to be able to do it physically because it had 2 20-gallon gas tanks, averaged 4.5 miles a gallon.
Ouch.
And yeah, and the distance between gas stations going out to Big Bend was further than both of those tanks could take us. Our ranch is 80 miles away, and we burned an entire tank of gas going up there, had to fill that tank back up, finished the drive up there, made it back to Bandera, topped it all the way back off again so we could get home. So just after that second trip to the ranch with the ambulance for our field days, we decided that a more economical solution. So we sold that thing, and we bought the trailer, and well, let's go take a look at it. Ruth, KE5MHJ, and I enjoyed the HAMster mobile communication station that we had built from an old retired ambulance. But gas mileage and the major situation of the fact that you could not make a run for supplies like fuel, food, and everything without performing a complete teardown and shutting down all operations made it impractical for our use. So after about 4 years of mobile emergency and roving operation, we sold the vehicle and laid out plans to build a new mobile communication center. We decided to start with 100% clean slate, so no old wiring to sort out, no issues. With that in mind, we decided to purchase a new enclosed trailer that could be towed to a location for operating, the truck disconnected to make runs for fuel, food, etc., and operations could continue. So in October 2013, we purchased this brand new trailer with double rear doors and a side pedestrian door, and we began construction on the new HAMster dubbed the Habit Trail. With Ruth's activity as the EC for Bexar County Aries and my interest in weak signal and remote operating, we needed a mobile communication center to meet some very specific needs. First of all, emergency communications operate as a full emergency communication center for Aries, Mars, and CERT. B, full remote field day special event communication command center. C, roving station for VHF, UHF, contest, grid activations, etc. With the above needs in mind, we wanted it to be able to operate in many different conditions, so power was a critical piece of the puzzle.
The system's designed with a 400 watts of solar power and 300 amp hour of battery power, with a full inverter to provide AC power for all critical devices, monitors, air conditioner, etc. It also has a 5 kW generator to provide full field power, and it can be plugged into shore power from any 30 amp power source. The next important aspect is the antenna support, since no communication can happen without them. Built into the HAMster are 3 VHF/UHF vertical antennas, plus an 80 to 60 meter screwdriver. A 50-foot push-up pole built into the front of the trailer allows fixed antennas to be raised, and a 10-foot Glen Martin tower built into the bed of the truck with quick release clamps, and a 20-foot mast allows large VHF/UHF Yagis to be installed. Combined with this, the station has the ability to generate 500 watts on HF and 6 meters, and 250 watts on 2 meters with 100 watts on 432. The station can operate phone, CW, Pactor, RIDI, MSK 144, and FT8 on 160 meters through 70 centimeters. Very soon we'll be adding to the system 1.25 meters and 23 centimeters. Special thanks to Jay, W5GNA, and Roger, W5ZL, for lending a hand during the construction.
ooh, you guys should be amazed. Say, how can you come up with it, Greg?
Well, it is an awesome trailer. I mean, we did a show on the trailer before. So if people want to go back and find that,
Yeah. So
kind of orient themselves on that.
So anyway, it was a fun project. We actually don't use it as much as we anticipated at the time, but it's mostly because we don't have any time. When I built that, we were planning on doing a bunch of traveling, going out to parks like Guadalupe mountains and things like that. And at the time, we didn't realize that we were going to be building our retirement home, fencing and clearing several acres of land for Ruth's garden, going into beekeeping. Speaking of beekeeping, we lost one of our hives to wax moss. Completely devastated it.
Yeah,
the hives are gone.
Yeah, they'll wipe them out.
Yeah. So anyway, but that's all I've got on there. Anybody got anything else they want to throw
I don't
in?
know. Something tells me on that trailer that it hasn't seen its glory days yet.
Well, since we're fixing to retire again, the benefit of that will be that we'll start going to the parks and things like that we wanted to do. I still think it'd be a lot of fun. Number one, like Guadalupe Mountains going up to Dog Park Canyon or Dog Canyon, something like that. I can't think today. The elevation is such that it's cool. You know, you go down in the valley floor, it's 110. You go up there and it's 72, 73 degrees.
Cool.
And everything, but you also got about 10,000 foot elevation, so good antenna height, and it's a rare grid because it's out in the middle of absolute nowhere, so you can get 6 meter to cooperate and you can have a lot of fun there.
So we're waiting for your retirement, your second retirement, and
Yeah.
right now we're waiting for Andrea's rover to get out of the shop.
Yeah, the poor transmission hauling those antennas decided to give up. Well, it's not the first time I've had transmission work, but I can't blame it really. 380,000 miles for trans rebuild, and I'm trying to think. The last trans rebuild was before I put the antennas on rover. So
Wow.
And how long have they been on there?
Let's see, the Yankees went on there in 2018. And I should say the trans rebuild, I might have had some of the stuff on the back. That wasn't nearly the kind of load. So the Aggies definitely, you could feel those when you drove. I've long since gotten used to it. I've added a little bit more, but 2018, so 2018, 19, 20. It's basically, this is the 6th year of those on there. And so some transmission work, they told me about $3,200. Of course, that occurred after I had ordered that 905. So
Yeah, if I'd have just been a little bit faster on my order before the tax man cometh,
Right.
yeah,
you
I
got
haven't
lucky.
we haven't paid for the transmission yet. And I'm like, okay, we'll see how it is. They tell me I'm lucky because the older vehicle, even though the almost identical ones for a few years after that, the price went up quite a bit on those in terms of getting them rebuilt. They didn't talk about a transmission replacement. And last time I had a rebuild, the replacement was about as much as the rebuild. But it was my local shop, and they guaranteed it the work longer and said it was better. Unfortunately, this shop locally here in Texas, that was my shop in New Jersey. I don't know. And they didn't say anything about warrantying their work. So I just have to take it, because what's my alternative? Try and rebuild Rover? No.
You're going to Band-Aid that thing together for 100 years just so you don't have to rebuild it.
Yeah. Well, I just want to point out that this 905 here, which miracle is back in the box from when you last saw it, cost more than that transmission. So
Yeah, I know. The
transmission
radio,
rebuild.
I think the radio's what, 37, 38?
35.
Up a little bit there, Andrea.
It's 35.
35 and then 1,000 for the 10 gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
When
they first announced that, man, I had stupid dreams that it was going to come in about the 9,700 price tag to a little bit more. And I was very disappointed when they announced the final pricing.
They did add quite a bit to it. They try and make it more appealing on a wider market, and by having it have 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Gosh, I just had everything in my segment that we just had before.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead. We're going to do something different. This is a test to see how many people stay tuned for the whole show. All right. So for those of you who are good and follow the whole show, the first 5 people, who email me at, get your pens, got your pens? N5XO at n5xo.net. First 5 people who email me, n5xo at n5xo.net, will get to be a live part of the live audience for next month's show. And you
Darn, I was ready to send that email, and then I realized, damn, I'm going to be on the show anyway.
Yeah, you're already here. All right. Well, I don't have anything else, so let's go ahead and say good night. Thanks for joining us. Melissa?
73, everybody.
Miss Andrea, go enjoy that radio.
73.
Again,
thank you.
Please feel free to store it here. It'll be safe and sound. I'll put it on its own little shelf. I'll even put donated by Andrea. I'm not seeing a lot of passion for that idea.
No.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll have 5 people that want to actually be on the show next month with us. So get that email out and we'll see how it goes. 73.